Welcome everybody to the first season of the YIF Podcast, where we're going to be talking about alumni journeys of transformation and impact. And it's going to be hosted by Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha. We're doing this to celebrate a decade of the Young India Fellowship. And today, in the second episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking to two entrepreneurs from the YIF who have created waves into very different sectors. And they're going to talk about not just a startup shaping new industries. We're going to meet Rahat Kulshreshtha from the third batch of the YIF and Jairaj Bhattacharya from the first batch of the YIF. Just to get some housekeeping sorted, the first 40 minutes are going to be the conversation, where you can also share your questions via the Q&A option. And the next 20 minutes are when we're going to have our panelists take your question and answer them. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Pramath.
Thank you, Palki. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone again. This is our second in the series, and I'm really excited to host Jairaj and Rahat today. As Palki said, these are two individuals who have not just started new companies, but have taken them to a amazing scale, and the impact that they are having is quite phenomenal in a very short period of time. They literally started at the end of the fellowship, and not only that, these companies are actually creating new industries, new sectors for people to work in and to participate in. So without further ado, welcome Jairaj and Rahat. I think you have to switch on your screen so that we can see you. And I'm not going to do more introductions because your introductions have been sent out to people already. So I'd like to start with you, Jairaj. Tell us, what does ConveGenius do, and where are you today in terms of what you have achieved and the impact you are having?
Thank you, Pramath. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all. So I would like to start a brief, of what we are doing. The idea was essentially to bring the power to teach and learn on mobile devices for the bottom 100 million children. That's how we started out. So it started out with a small journey to a village where I just used to start observing kids playing out with phones that they have never seen before. So the smartphone was a new thing, and without having access to any kind of smartphone in a village, the child could not imagine what it is to play with. So I would give out my phone and put out YouTube, and I would see how a child experiences the whole learning experience. So we could see the curiosity of the child, how a child reacts to a device. And that's where the idea was, if we could spark the curiosity in 100 million children, 200 million children at the bottom of the pyramid, we are essentially democratizing the possibility of education, access to learning and education to the poor. So ConveGenius started with this vision, the vision to basically bring the power to teach and learn on the mobile device in as simple a way possible. And that kind of led us to, understand how children learn and, unravel the science of learning. So it started out with like imagining learning as a GPS map. So if we were to imagine the brain of the child and identify where the child is today in terms of their current location, and then we also know where the child needs to be based on the grade level competency. So we have the current location, which is point A, and we know where the child needs to be, which is point B. How do we design the shortest path and really good user learning journeys from point A to point B? It started out with this simple problem statement. So ConveGenius means converging towards genius. So it's essentially point A to point B. Point A is where you are today, and point B is where you need to be. So that's ConveGenius. And today we are at about 5 million users across 16 states in 10 vernacular languages.
Slow down. You have to absorb this. So you're saying there are 5 million kids learning on the ConveGenius platform as of today. 5 million.
Yeah, that's right. 5 million across 16 states. Yeah.
So that's about 50 lakhs, right? Yeah, 50 lakh children,
Yes.
half
And
a crore. And there are across 16 states, you said?
yes, that's 16 states.
And how many languages?
There's 10 languages.
10
one.
languages. Wow. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and last week we peaked in terms of the number of user transactions. We hit 72 million transactions between the weekly active users. So that was by far the highest.
So in 1 week, there are 72 million learning episodes. Like people are learning.
Between our bot, our user interface, and the child, basically. So we measure that.
And Jairaj, this is all on the mobile.
Yeah.
You're largely on the mobile, right?
Mobile, tablet, or computer labs, ICT labs. So essentially, we were largely on government school computers and labs, ICT infrastructure before COVID. But as the school
right now with the school, sorry, I keep interrupting you, but right now with the schools in lockdown, the 72 million must be all through mobile, basically, right? Because these are the lower income kids and they only have mobile devices. They don't have laptops and so on. Yeah. So would it be fair to say that they are really only learning through you?
Not really. Yes. They are learning through our application. Yes. And they are also learning through other initiatives the government has done. But yes, our application is primarily solving the problem of personalized and adaptive learning, because what we are able to do is able to judge where the child is and design the right learning journey, which a teacher would be doing in a government school classroom, right?
So, Jairaj, pre-COVID, say early March, how many users did you have relative to this 5 million?
So, very good question. So we were at 500,000, which is 5 lakh.
So you've grown 10 times. Wow.
Yeah.
So in that sense, sorry, but there is a silver lining for you, even though the kids have, poor kids suffered in this bad time. All education has suffered. So that's phenomenal. Do you expect this level of engagement to continue, you think, or will it taper off again when the schools open? Where do you think? Will this be a permanent increase for you, you think?
So again, that's something that we are working on. And I think the primary reason that it took us 5 years to get to 5 lakh users and then 5 months to jump 10x was the whole realization that yes, it is possible to learn via technology, even at the bottommost end of the pyramid, right? It is, I think, a mindset change, right? When schools get shut, you start thinking that, okay, now we have to do online education. And when people move from the traditional education to online learning and see, wow, this is the new way, this is magic. And then people get used to it. So now what we are seeing is they don't want to move back. They are very happy learning on the phone, at home, in an on-demand manner. And you are getting that personalized learning service where every child is getting a suite of learning content which is designed according to the child's learning profile. What more do you want? I think learning is...
But people say, listen, this is all compromised learning. This can't be as good as in the classroom. How can you teach, 8-year-old, 10-year-old through a mobile phone? What is this? This is gimmicky. How do you react to that? When I'm sure people challenge you like that, no?
Yes. So I mean, today people are with a gun on their head, like, learning loss is happening. We need to do something, so we have to go online. But if you were to break down a classroom transaction into all the different activities which a teacher and child would be doing, there is the instructional content, which is delivered by the teacher themselves. That is one where you have an emotional touch, where you are in a peer group of students and the teacher is delivering an instruction. But there's a lot more to that. There is homework, there's doubt clearance, there is assessment, there's formative and summative assessment, both. So a lot of the activities in a classroom across the year, a teacher is having to do, which could be easily automated. So we started out, Pramath, with to looking at what would actually make the life of a teacher or a school leader easy, which was essentially how would AI solve a teacher's problem and make life easy, at least start with the pandemic, right? So we first chose the problem of assessments, because assessments is something on the mobile or on a tablet, a teacher would be basically downloading images and correcting it and then sending back the answers. This particular use case was very simple to solve using AI. So we started out with the use case of assessments, that how do we automate assessments for the teacher and the student, and how do you make that experience seamless? So once assessment got automated and it kind of freed up the time and space for a teacher to kind of think ahead, then we started creating assessment-led remediation, meaning that now we know what the gaps are. Now we'll recommend some content to use so that we know that this is your problem, so watch this. So that's how we are kind of working with the school ecosystem, with all the stakeholders, and trying to solve the pain points of their problem. So that's how we are looking at it. So tomorrow, if schools start, they can they will have their usual classes, but this is going to continue as a,
because they have tasted the fruits, or they've tasted blood in that sense, that this is something that actually helps them. So say that again. You ConveGenius came out of, what was the name again? From what to genius, you said?
Convergence and genius.
Convergence and genius. Okay, so the convergence between A and B, that whole idea
exactly.
of this. Well, you've chosen a fascinating name, and I want to use that to turn to Rahat, who chose Quidich. Rahat, where did Quidich come from? How did you think of that as the name for your company?
So thank you, Pramath, for having us on the show. Quidich was basically a name that actually got invented for us. The name came while we were at the fellowship itself, and so did the startup itself, because our startup was an ELM. But essentially, the name was something where we were spending about 4 days on this process of thinking of a name that kind of works for us. And we were at that time we were very clear we're doing something in drones. And we weren't sure where it's going to go, but we thought, the best way to get a name is to really put out everything that we believe in, that we thought the company was, onto a whiteboard, and kind of then, find what name kind of fits that. So, we had this one whiteboard in our campus in our window, and, we wrote out all of these things, which was young, passionate, competitive, aerial, flying, sports, which we didn't realize that we were going to be doing so much of. And then, we were just throwing out words and trying to invent words and think of something that kind of encapsulates everything that was on the board into one word. And then Gaurav, who's my co-founder, I think, suggested Quidich as a name. And we looked at each and every word on the board and we were like, yes, this just fits perfectly, with everything that we stand for. So that's really where the name came from.
Very interesting. Tell us what you do and tell us where you are at right now. I know that you are in this mega and very spectacular business, which is in streaming to all our homes and phones also these days. So tell us what you do and where you are.
Yeah, so it's been a very exciting journey with Quidich. It started off as an experiential learning module at the Young India Fellowship, where we were just trying to experiment with drone technology. But as we moved ahead, we kind of carved our niche of the business that we do, from just being a drone provider to finding a niche of what is called in the broadcast industry special cameras, which are slightly more complex than the standard cameras that you just put on a tripod. It's a little bit more than that. So we've got the drone, which is what brought us into the industry and what built the brand to begin with. So we use the drones now for a lot of the big broadcast shows that you see in the country. So, your IPLs, a lot of the other sports broadcasts from the ISL and other sports like that. We also do coverage of things like the Kaun Banega Crorepati show. So we've got a small buggy system, which is a remote control car. Also, a lot of the people would have seen it at the IPL as well.
So now you actually have cameras on the ground, Rahat. I always thought your cameras were in the air.
We're now basically doing everything that are cameras on the move. So we've kind of gone from just being a drone company to doing bits and pieces more. They're mostly remote control cameras. We've now got cameras on wires as well. So you can put 4 pulleys.
So those things that you see flying across the field.
That's right. That's right.
Do you literally have to string a wire across the whole field to have that camera?
It's a pretty complex setup, and Pramath, you will really appreciate it with your education background as well.
But can you reuse the wires? Now I'm getting really into this.
So they're Kevlar wires, Pramath, linked to a winch, 4 winches at the bottom. So they're absolutely reusable.
Wow.
And they can take thousands of kilos on each wire, so they're super safe.
You still haven't taken me for an IPL game. Anyway, we'll come to that later. So how many cameras do you have now?
So we have a very, very broad range of cameras now. The number of cameras is not very large. We'd have about 25 cameras.
Sounds like a large number to me.
but what's exciting about them is that each one is very unique. So each one of them is one of its kind. Probably.
Would you be the only provider in India to have such cameras even?
Yes. So whether it's the buggy camera, whether it's the drone, we built a layer of technology now on top of the drone, which is augmented reality. So we're the only company in the world now providing AR on a drone, which is allowing us to not just look at Indian broadcasts, but now doing a lot of international projects as well. So, last year
how do you AR on a drone? What does that look like? So you create artificial augmented reality and the drone. Yeah, sorry, explain that.
Yeah, so I'm guessing a lot of people watching this on the other screen will be watching the IPL, so you can actually watch it happening now itself. So essentially what this is that the drone is flying and giving you a nice view of the stadium. And we kind of realized that, that's getting very commoditized because drones are getting very popular and everybody can now buy a drone. 5 years ago when we started, nobody knew about it. And today, Jairaj sitting on the screen, I can see a small propeller coming out of the back of his head. So we know that it's become pretty popular. So we said, how can we kind of create, a layer of storytelling beyond just the visual of the stadium? And how do we kind of contribute to the broadcast a little bit more? And that's where augmented reality came in, where we're able to put a virtual object in the real world. And as the drone moves around it, it kind of behaves like it's in the real world. So, each match today starts with our drone shot, which has the locator graphics. So that, tells you that this match versus this match, each match today, each IPL match ends with our shot where you've got the drone shot. You've got these augmented reality fireworks that we can fly through and it reveals who won the
those
game.
Fireworks are augmented reality.
Yes. And so is the toss. So, when the toss happens, we run the toss and then this coin comes flying out of the stadium. So all of that is
yeah. Okay, now I get it. Okay, wow. Amazing. So you are doing IPL. He's changing the lives of 100 million kids. Amazing stories for both of you. Jairaj, did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
Yes, Pramath. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I think the whole Young India Fellowship experience kind of cemented it. Yes. I was not getting that push which happened in YIF.
So what was the push? We don't really push people to entrepreneurship. So but obviously these things happened because both of you went off and became entrepreneurs right then. What was your push?
So I had a small entrepreneurship experience in college when I had built Midlet on the Nokia Symbian phone, which would automate my hostel room. And it was pretty cool. And the investors kind of just bought the source code.
You were automating your hostel room.
Yeah, my room, it was more like a cool experiment to show off that, here's a Nokia phone. I press 1 and I can switch on my fan. So it was the E65 phone where the camera enablement could be done. And I did it through my laptop. The laptop was in the room. And so basically I could show the laptops through the laptop. I could show the hostel room to all my investors and I could show a fan switching on and off. So it was a cool idea. And at that point,
yes.
Yeah, this was 2007 when Android smartphones didn't exist at that point of time. So that was like a sophomore year summer project. We presented to ISB and we won the business plan competition. They called us and they said, hey, listen, we want to invest $1 million. Do you want to start a company? We could possibly drop out of college. I said, no way. I'm not going to drop out of college. I want to finish my computer science electronics.
Till then, you had not heard of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs dropping out of college. Of course you had.
Of course. Yeah. Zuckerberg was getting famous in 2006. That's when he was Facebook was expanding and exploding.
But I'm sure your parents would have thrown you out of the home if you had done that.
Right. My parents lived a stone's throw away because they were also based out of Hyderabad.
Yes.
So no way I could have done that. So I took the check. They basically wrote a check and bought the software. Had enough money, and it was a good experience of the potential.
You must be the richest guy on campus with a technology that you sold while in college.
Yeah. It was a kind of a famous, rich, heroic experience. What a geek can potentially achieve. So,
But then why would you, with all that success already, why would you go to YIF? Liberal arts and...
So yeah, I mean, it was all computer science code, writing code, and building software. So I was working in Singapore after that for a year. I was doing research and human-computer interfaces. And during that time, I saw your video, Pramath. I saw Narayan Murthy. I saw Vineet Gupta, Ashish Dhawan talking about the potential of liberal arts and solving a problem by marrying different sciences, right? Liberal arts and sciences. So that kind of attracted me. That okay, I might need this to understand what the calling is. What is a problem that I can solve? So essentially, I was seeking for a problem that could be a really tangible problem that will change at least some. It create a meaning for what I was doing. So I left my job in Singapore, came back. Shravan, I remember Shravan. He's still there. It's a decade-old story, but I'm sure he will also remember. So I took the flight. He was actually questioning whether I was really going to come or not, because I said I'm going to just fly in the next flight and take the interview. So came to YIF, and that changed everything, right? The guest lectures, the stories. I remember all the stories still. It's been almost 9 years. I remember Sanjeev telling us, at 40 you have a switch. You don't want to get there and realize that your switch is off. Do it right now, and right now is the right time for you to do it.
Sorry. Explain this one. What did he say? Slow down. This is important because this made a huge impression on you that you still remember.
Yeah. I remember multiple stories. This one especially because he said two things actually. One, he said, what is it that you can build for a lifetime? Find that idea, what that will keep you up for a lifetime. That you wake up every morning and you still feel like doing it. What is that problem you want to solve? That I remember clearly. And go and do that problem basically. Then through the roller coaster rides, through not having any money in the bank and having to pay the salary next month, figuring out how do you pay and manage payroll, you will be able to wake up in the morning with the same smile and the same positivity and the same resilience, right? Because you're solving a bigger problem. So that was one. And the second was while you work for other people, when you're employed, every day, every month, you will be realizing that you're nearing 40. That is what he said. Sanjeev said that, that I'm nearing 40, and at 40, my switch will go switch off. And then I might not be able to do all the things I really wanted to do. So I better do it now, right now. So these were two things I really remember that, okay, this is it. Entrepreneurship is right here, right now. Let's start planning for it. And then I remember Pramod's lecture.
Pramod Bhasin,
yeah. He was talking about how he built Genpact in a rapid fire mode over 5 years, right? How he built a culture of adaptive boundaries. He said that, when I hit a boundary, I would raise it the next day. I would hit the boundary and again I would raise it the next day. So a boundary is just a short-term definition of where you need to be, and then you change the boundary again. So these were things that kind of built out, what it is to be an adaptive leader. And of course, the various liberal arts courses taught me how to articulate and how do you put your point forward to the other person. Every person is different. So I think YIF was what cemented entrepreneurship for me.
Rahat, born entrepreneur? Always wanted to be a strip.
Not at all, actually. The kind of atmosphere that I grew up in, I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was for the longest time. I didn't even know it was a thing, and sort of it was never on the cards. I had studied to be a filmmaker, and I had always aspired to sort of become a filmmaker. And the idea was to look at impact and get into documentaries and things like that. And I did a fair share of that before I moved back to India when I was studying in England. And so on. So there was absolutely no plan to become an entrepreneur.
You had actually gone to England to study filmmaking, right?
That's right. So I was studying film and television at the University of Westminster in London, and then worked in the British film industry for a few years after that. And then India calling happened, and I was just like, just want to move back to India because there was just lots of action happening, and thought there's a good time to move back. So moved back with not too much in mind and not too much of a plan. And ended up directing music videos. So I did about 8-9 music videos.
In fact, you considered the YIF and then delayed it, or said that you wouldn't do it, right? And you went off to make music videos, right?
That's right. So a very, very random chain of events, starting from you being on a flight with my mother, talking about the fellowship, and then my mother telling me, oh, you should check this thing out. So I actually filled in the application form the year before I joined, and I wasn't very happy with my application. And I was like, I'm never getting through with this. So I didn't apply for it. And then the year after, when I'd done these 9 music videos, I was just like, this is not what, I want my life path to be. And this is just not feeling, right. So I wanted to take a break. And that's when I thought, let me just apply for the fellowship again. So what was interesting is I actually decided to write the application afresh, because I was just like, I know I didn't like the last year's application. I wrote it afresh, and then I compared my notes, and I was like, okay, I'm still, ballpark around the same answers that I had last year. So obviously I haven't improved as a human being, but let me just apply for this because it's obviously the right answer. And obviously somebody saw some merit in what I'd written, and I got through. So entrepreneurship was never on the card.
How did you convince the tough YIF team to let you do the drone ELM?
Well, firstly, I first have a question for you, Pramath. I want to know, what is the selection process for how do you decide roommates at the fellowship? Because that's one of the only reasons why my ELM of my business or anything that I'm doing today happened.
So would you say on television that if you hadn't met Gaurav, Quidich would not have happened?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that 100 times. There's no, and not just that it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have even continued if it wasn't for him. I mean, I think, and, Jairaj, I'm sure, with co-founders, it's something that is, extremely crucial to be able to keep the story going. And
firstly, most people don't get along with their roommate. So to actually then start a business was a big risk. But anyway.
So entrepreneurship was actually never on the cards. I wanted to do an ELM with Prasar Bharati and try and fix the national broadcaster. And Gaurav turned around and said, he's like, Sam Petroda has tried it and Nandan Nilekani has tried it and nothing's happened. You really think an ELM is going to do anything? Let's, you've got this drone. Let's give this a shot. And, it's a risk-free environment at the fellowship because, we've got 9 months over there. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. And really, that's how I was able to get convinced, because in my mind, till that point, entrepreneurship was more traditional business, which was all dirty and, you have to pay people to get things done. And that's what the perception of entrepreneurship was in my head. I hadn't kind of got exposed to what entrepreneurship is today. So, and it really started as randomly as that. We just got into it. We had this one drone that I had picked up and we said, let's see what we can do with this.
Yeah,
and
I still remember you guys coming with your first drone and very excitedly showing that, hey, here's our first drone. It was while at the fellowship, right?
Our first content that we created with that drone was all of the content that Young India Fellowship saw on YouTube 4 years ago, 6 years ago now, because, that was our testing bed. And then we kind of took that out to see where it was getting more and more interesting. So we did a few projects and suddenly we got a project to be able to cover at that time in 2014, the Lok Sabha election. So TV Today said, hey, can we do this live? And at that time we hadn't solved for live drone technology coming from the drone, so we committed that yes, we can do it. And then straight after that, got into major R&D. We were like, okay, how can we get this live video down after having committed to it? That was a 1-day project that they had given to us. That 1 day converted into a 3-day project, and then suddenly turns out we're traveling with Rahul Kanwal on the Election Express covering the entire Lok Sabha elections for TV Today for some 45 days. And that's when we knew that, there was validation in the idea, that we knew that there was something that was there, and, all we had to do was, persist and create a business out of it.
So both of you have really stayed the course. I do have a little bit of a sneak peek into your lives. Have there been points where you felt like that you had hit a dead end and this was it, it's over, and then you sort of recover from that? Has that happened, Jairaj?
Yes, multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah. Multiple times. I mean, it's multiple dead ends. I think the biggest thing there is about, how do you continue? How do you keep going? And then you need to be thinking from different lenses, right? What is it that you're actually going to achieve? If you start doing that, right? You have achieved this much, and now why do I stop, right? Let's just keep going and see, and it all works out always. So far, it's worked out.
How much money have you raised? Can you disclose it to us, or?
Sure, Pramath. I have raised about 21 CR so far.
So you've run multiple rounds of funding and raised 21 crores. And I think you have some very marquee investors, right? Who are your investors now?
Sure, Pramath. So I have raised about 3 rounds of funding so far. And fortunately, Ashoka has been, the founders of Ashoka have also been part of our rounds. Ashish Gupta from Benuri, Rajat Dhawan, they have participated in a couple of rounds. Among Ashoka founders, I think I've raised almost 10 crores. So yeah, that way I'm very thankful for the YIF and Ashoka network that is not just helped me during the YIF itself, but beyond YIF. As they say, the fellowship never ends.
And you've always had a ELM, and you've employed many YIF alums also, right? Over the years, if I remember correctly.
That's right, Pramath. So one of the things was, when you have a YIF founder and when you have YIF investors, why can't we have YIF employees? So the idea was to complete the full circle. So yeah, I would come and, look for like-minded people.
So you have YIF investors, and Rahat, you have a YIF founder.
Yes, co-founder. And I think I'm definitely going to take inspiration from Jairaj as well and find an investor as well.
But tell me something, it's tough to work with co-founders, Rahat, and especially if they are friends. In fact, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, people warned me that one of the big reasons businesses fail is that people don't get along with co-founders. So did it help that Gaurav was from the YIF? And he's a very different guy. I remember interviewing him. He was all about driving race cars, right? So how's that partnership worked? And have you guys had to work at it? Did the fact that you came from the same program help?
It definitely helped. I think in terms of what it really gave is that longer term alignment was kind of set early on, and I think that's really what is important with partnerships, where trying to know where you're trying to get to. I think if you're aligned on that, then everything else kind of falls into place. And I think that was the advantage of having a co-founder who was also your roommate, because he had seen and I had seen everything that was possibly there to see. So I think from that perspective, we were able to get our long-term alignments in place. We've definitely had, ups and downs in a relationship, because as the kind of friendship that we had during the fellowship was absolutely incredible. And, as co-founders, you've got to strike the right balance between, being able to be, the right amount of friendship and the right amount of co-founders. So I think we've been able to strike that balance. It's definitely been a tough balance to strike, but I think just having that alignment of the long-term vision of what we're trying to create, I think that just allows us to be able to make sure that we can stay on course, which is really important. And at the same time, I think one of the really big other things that came out of being roommates is trust. And I think that's really important with co-founders as well, because currently, if you have absolute blind faith on someone, which really comes out of I think when you've lived with someone, or the reason why boarding school friends are still such close friends, and I guess all of those things that happen is because you've spent that kind of time together, and I think that definitely helps the equation as well.
How many people do you employ now?
So we employ about 25 people full-time. So these are people who we try and find who are either passionate about sport or passionate about filming and cinematography, and we train them to be able to get better on operations. We've got a technology team that is now building a lot of this tech that we were talking about, augmented reality. We're now working on a player tracking algorithm, which is going to use the camera to be able to track players on the field and give out analytics for that. And then we have a team of about 20 freelance operators that come in on a project basis. So when we've got a big project like now, we've got about 21 people in UAE for the IPL. We've simultaneously got ConveGenius Crorepati going on for 5 months, where we've got the buggy system going there. So we then have that opportunity to be able to scale up and scale down based on.
Yeah, I remember the time when you guys yourself were going around with the screwdrivers and the wires and doing all of this just by yourself, right? So it's amazing.
That's been one of the hardest things in my life, and I still have to deal with it, which is to be able to not be out on the field and not do all the screwdriver work yourself. But I think that's all part of the journey of being able to learn.
Rahat, what's the next big thing for Quidich? If you could just quickly articulate that, what is the next big? We have to wind down this conversation, unfortunately. So I want some shorter answers from both of you so that we can get to the Q&A. But I still have a few questions to ask you. So for you first, where is Quidich headed in your mind right now? Next stage.
So I think what we've been able to solve for so far is really understand where we stand as a company, who are our clients, and what are our services. We've been able to really, really create our niche for that and validate that. And the next few years with what we've created is purely about scaling that story globally, because the products that we have and the services that we have are things that are for sports and broadcast internationally are something that we can create a lot of value. And this year we've been able to test that with the Women's World Cup in Australia. We did the entire Caribbean Premier League. We did the Under-19 World Cup in South Africa. So with what we've got so far, it's really about scaling this story globally, and simultaneously continue to use all of our on-ground experience from all of these projects that we're doing to be able to build great tech. And that's going to be the backbone. So the front end is delivering these services that we've understood, and constantly keep innovating on the technology for broadcast and viewership, so that these millions of people sitting at home can get a better experience of the sport or of the broadcast in a way that hasn't happened before. And that's really what we're going to be doing over the next few years.
Very exciting. I mean, you almost are making me reconsider my career options: travel, sports, and technology. And there you just named Caribbean, Australia, and South Africa. 3 places I've never been. Wow, I should join you. Jairaj, what's next for ConveGenius?
I think, Pramath, we have a lot to achieve. We have not even achieved 5% of the potential. So it's a long way to go. We are at 5 million today, and if you would look at the market, 130 million children in government schools and 80 million children in affordable and budget private schools still don't have access to education technology and quality learning services. So it's a lot of problems. First is device access. There is device inequity between families who have access to smartphones at home and families who do not. Then there is internet issues. Then there are problems of language constraints. India is still on vernacular, and not a lot of them are English medium students. So the ability to give the same consistent learning experience and create impact across geographies, across demographics, across areas, like we are working in Leh and Kargil, where there is no mobile connectivity as well. But the ability to provide the same learning experiences across all of these various constraints is what we are working on and we are trying to solve for. And that is what excites me, that if we were to able to really do that at that scale, it's essentially India's demographic dividend. And the data about how children are learning will help us solve a larger problem, which is how do we connect education with skilling and solve the problem of employability. So I think I will slowly start making that jump again once we have that mass of 15 million users, where we are able to get big data about how children are learning and what insights that provide us to kind of connect education with employability.
Excellent. What great ideas both of you are working on. All the power to you. Before we go to Q&A, any particular things that you would say to other alums who are trying to be entrepreneurs, or current YIF fellows who want to be entrepreneurs? What's the one thing you would tell them to do if they are contemplating entrepreneurship? Both of you have unmuted.
Yeah. So I think the one thing that stood up most is the ability to have grit and you yourself, believing in your idea and your vision. If you believe in that, you create an automatic belief system around you, and everything starts following accordingly. So grit is, I think, the one thing that you should have when you're building something for yourself.
Okay, wonderful. Grit, one word, in fact, is what you are saying. Rahat, match that.
I have a slightly longer answer to that, but two things essentially. One is, I think, something that I actually learned during the fellowship. I think, when you enter the Young India Fellowship, you're hit with this sudden equalizer of reality where, before I joined the fellowship, I thought I was, the cat's whiskers. I had, at the age of 22, 23, gone and done all of these music videos, studied in London, worked in the film industry. I thought I was really cool. And then you suddenly come to the YIF and you get this reality check that you've got these 99, or now I think 199 other really, really qualified people who've done really well in their lives. And I think what YIF did for me was break down that confidence down to zero and then help you build up from there and get to a point where having that confidence to be able to take on any new challenge and not have the fear with something new that is thrown at you. I think that was something really, really key that I learned at the fellowship, which even till today I can look back to and feel that really helps me in my journey every day to suddenly say, okay, we're going to build AI as part of our technology stack that we're offering to our customers, and not be scared about, oh, this is a really complex thing to get into, but just let's give it a shot and see what happens. So I think that is one. And the other one is definitely the importance of following your passion. I think we underestimated it at Quidich through our halfway through our journey, where we said, okay, drones is our exciting point, and let's try and do anything with drones. So we were doing mining projects and road projects and cell phone tower inspections and whatnot. And I think one of the key things that we realized during that 1 or 2 years of experimentation during that time was that we were doing stuff, we were generating revenue, we were working with really big clients, but there was no passion between Gaurav and me for any of that stuff that we were doing. And because of that, there was no longevity of it. It was just ki kar rahe the kyunki ho raha tha, but there was no, if I had to do that for 5 years, 10 years of my life, I would have probably given up when if I can use the word, shit hit the roof. And I think being able to follow your passion today, for me, it's the technology and the filmmaking. For Gaurav, he's always, had extreme passion for sports. And I think, putting both of those together, no matter what hits us today, we're still really excited about doing what we're doing right now. And I think to what Jairaj was saying earlier, that, wake up in the morning and really be still excited about what you're doing is really the key of just keep on going and enjoying what you're doing. So I think following your passion would be definitely the second point that I would make.
Well, clearly both of you have done that, and I've watched that. Very impressive the way you both have done that. There are a bunch of questions now that I'd like to pose to you. Some are to one or the other, or some are to both. So first, starting with Jairaj, Aditya Arun is asking, how do you see internet and mobile device penetration amongst your target population? Am I wrong in assuming that the lower pyramid usually does not have access to technology?
So you're not wrong. In fact, every state, there are different metrics of the device penetration. And since we are working with a few states, I can give you examples. Some states like UP have 40% penetration of devices at the bottom of the pyramid. Some states are more forward and they have 60 to 70% penetration. So the device issue is a real issue. Internet is not. Internet, 3G access, 4G access is now everywhere, thanks to Jio. So the real problem is the affordability of a device, and we are looking at various models of how do we solve that. And I think in the next 6 to 7 months, that would be a problem that will have various businesses around it, where second-hand devices and microfinancing of devices with zero AMI models will be built, because the government and the private sector together are working on this, on solving the device issue. But it's a real problem, and that is creating an inequity in the bottom of the pyramid between the ones who have device, have access to education today, and the ones who don't. So huge learning losses being created in the process.
One thing I just want to add, which is not my place to say this, but I can't resist that, also in 75 years, there's a huge classroom divide also that we have created, right? Because we haven't been at least able to get a classroom and a teacher to the bottom of the pyramid. At least let's get them devices. Maybe a easier problem to solve. Rahat, it's again from Aditya himself saying, do you see any engagement with the government, especially in geospatial management in agriculture, urban planning, disaster management? Additionally, doesn't Quidich come from Harry Potter?
So yeah, I mean, most definitely the applications of drones are endless. I mean, it's where we are using it is only one part of the application of the drones, but drones in government, whether you look at it from a security surveillance standpoint or a disaster management standpoint, agriculture, absolutely incredible applications. The technology is getting better and better by the day, to a point where today you can take one drone, survey an entire piece of land, if it's agricultural land, you can get detailed levels to the point of water content, to the point of where, there is infection. You can then take another drone and spray exactly in those hotspots. So the applications of the drone for, are absolutely endless, and we can do a whole session on that. But I think, what I was saying earlier about passion is what got us to be able to narrow down on our focus. What was interesting was after last week's session that you did, Pramath, with Pavneet, I just messaged her to say, so nice to see what you're up to. And suddenly the conversation went exactly to this. Hey, can we do some stuff with disaster management? Can we do some stuff with agriculture? So yes, there is definitely use in the government. I can't officially say that, yes, it is inspired by Harry Potter, but yes, in a sense it is. That's where it comes from. The name.
Okay, there's one question that Vaibhav Dwivedi is asking, and I want to put that to you because I get this a lot. So you seemed to have figured out your passion somehow through the YIF. And how does the YIF help you do that if you haven't already figured it out? What would you say to somebody who's struggling to find their passion and is looking at the YIF as a trigger?
So should I go?
Yeah, go ahead, Rahat.
So I think for me, what I had I'm going to be extremely brutally honest here. I had no idea what I was getting into when I was getting into the YIF. I was just, in my mind, it was a break year, and the reality was very different from what it was. From the first guest lecture where I was asked to give the introduction, and I had no idea who Madeleine Albright was, and suddenly I'm doing research and I'm like, whoa, this is some seriously incredible people coming to the fellowship, where you've got the first women's Secretary States, United States America, coming and giving you your first guest lecture. So I had very little clue of what I was getting into, but I think what it really did for me was break down my thinking as to who I am. And that's something as education, and I'm probably not the right person to talk about education between Pramath and Jairaj on the screen, but for me, the education that I've had from school and university never got me to sort of look within. You were always trying to look outside and trying to understand physics or understand filmmaking or understand something that was outside. I think with the way the different courses at YIF are, between, Dwight's course, which, really makes you look forward and think about a final vision, something you've never been told to do in your life. Look 20 years ahead or 10 years ahead and write down what your life is 10 years later. It's such a simple thing to do, but traditional education just doesn't teach you to do something like that. So from Dwight's course, doing things like the final vision, to Kenvin's course, really getting you to dig deeper inside who you are as a human being, what matters to you, the hard questions of even thinking about questions like what is the purpose of life. Those are questions that, people reach to at 50, 60 years of age, and then, it's probably too late already. I still don't have those answers, but at least I'm asking those questions. And a lot of that came from the YIF. So I think for me, it was just creating that atmosphere of being able to ask those questions, and then have enough people around you as a peer group to be able to have those conversations and not be judged. I think that really is what I got from the fellowship, to be able to, really be in that position to ask yourself some of those tough questions. And purely, how you described this is what I got out of it, that, the three things that I was passionate about, travel, film, and technology, was exactly what we put together, and that's what we do today. And I can just keep on doing this forever and ever and ever, 24 hours a day, no problem. I just enjoy it so much that it doesn't matter. It's just so much fun.
Thank you, Rahat. That's very well put. Thank you. Jairaj.
Yeah, for me, Pramath, I mean, YIF was a break year as well. And I was essentially a sponge all through the year, trying to absorb as much as possible from wherever I can, from my friends, peer group, from the guest lectures, from the courses. But as an entrepreneur, since I was looking for a problem, I was always trying to solve for whatever problems that kept coming into my head, right? Okay, this is possible. Okay, I could do this. This is an idea I could look at. Between all of them, I created a framework for myself. That too, I think it was a part of YIF exercise, where you first go to the circle of why are you doing it? And then you try and answer how you're going to do it. And if I'm not able to answer the why, the idea didn't make sense for me. So I kind of put myself through these filters, and then kind of bottled my whole idea and packaged it that, okay, this is something I could take up. So building internal structures to take your ideas and filter it out is also very important, because you'll have a lot of ideas flowing in when you're in this environment. And to kind of streamline and make a decision on this is what you're going forward and going up with, and you're going to jump off the cliff and build parachutes in the air, I think you need to have your right disciplines and structures in place. So I would recommend taking all the course structures, right? For example, in YIF, I used to put a framework of what would Polya say or do, which was coming from my statistics course. And then I would put a historical lens of what Rudrangshu had taught me. And then I would put a technology and ethics lens of Kenneth Foster. And all of this, I would kind of try and look at it from different angles and see if does it make sense. So I think you can do that. It's a thought experiment. You're not, you can do it with yourself. It's an internal learning and reflection process, as Rahat was saying.
That's a great liberal arts answer from a quintessential engineer. But that's exactly
Maybe
what...
I learned. YIF has made an influence, Pramath.
Okay, we have a few more questions in the last few minutes left. Amrita Nanda asks a question: is there anything you would change about what you do, and how do you do it? What would it be if you had to change one thing?
For us, it's definitely the regulation. We haven't spoken about that, but it's been one of the hardest parts for us to be able to do what we're doing, which is the regulation that goes on in this. So the only thing that's really stopping the industry from scaling is the regulation itself, and all of the other questions about what the potential of the drone technology is really limited today, because we still don't have that in place. So that, I mean, if there was one thing that I was trying to do, I would try and get that in order first.
Jairaj, what about you?
I think it is more from a front of balancing things in life. I would say that following your passion and being obsessive about the problems you solve is okay, but if I were to do it differently, I would have actually made time for my personal life as well. So as an entrepreneur, you just go mad about what the things matter to you, but you also need to balance your personal life, and that's how you.
That's again very, very important and critical that you mentioned that. Thank you for sharing that. Both of you, how large is the team you're working with? Rahat, you already said that. What do you think is the most critical skill you want your team members to inculcate? Rahat, you had 25 plus 25 roughly. What is the critical skill you want them to inculcate?
I think integrity would be the most important skill that we're even looking out for, because it's something that as an organization, we put a lot of trust and faith in the people that are going out in the field, and we do it with complete honesty. And to be able to get that integrity back in return is something that is really rewarding. So I think that's something that one is really looking out for, to make sure that we can build our teams and our people to not just be not just have integrity towards the organization, but even towards their clients and in their own personal lives. I think that's
they are very far. They're dispersed, and you can't possibly be watching over all of them and doing what.
Yeah, both from an organizational perspective, but even from a human perspective, I think that's something that just in our lives is just not given enough importance, and is not brought up in enough conversation. And I think that's really something that if there's one thing that I had to think about, what would be a quality that should go across the team, that would be that.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about integrity, not just like honesty, but integrity in terms of commitments, in terms of sort of serving the client, looking out for the interest of the company, and so on. Right? It's a much larger definition.
Yeah,
Jairaj?
absolutely. And I've realized it's.
Please go on.
Finish, Rahat. Finish. Rahat, you finish.
I was just saying that I've realized this through sort of some of the different things that we're doing. So, as part of this, the last answer I was doing about regulation, we'd also set up an industry body for drones in India. So we've got something called the Drone Federation of India, of which I'm the president at the moment. And we've spent a lot of time doing a lot of, industry level work for the regulation, bringing a lot of different companies together to be able to, represent the industry with the government and things like that. And, in places like that, you suddenly realize the value of integrity and the value of, the responsibility that you suddenly have. And if you don't have that as a core value within the organization, it's very, very easy to be able to mess up very quickly. And I think, that's why that's very important across the board for us.
Yeah. Jairaj, you wanted to add to that, and any last words from you?
Yeah, I would just add to that, saying that I also look for ownership as part of the quality, because
ownership,
because I feel that as we grow, when the first 10 employees, it's very easy to kind of delegate and kind of micromanage. But as you grow to 100 plus people, your team has to have the ownership to start automatically taking up roles and responsibilities, so that you can focus on growth. So your 1 to 10 journey, and from 10 to 100 and then 100 plus, is very different. So I think what it translates down to a culture of ownership in terms of the responsibilities that you have. And you are intrapreneurs, I call it. Look for intrapreneurs as an entrepreneur. That will build a large value company.
That's nicely put. Any last word? We are already at 8 o'clock, but I want to let you both have a last word before I close. Good. All right. Listen, thank you both. I'm really privileged to be doing this. I said this last time, but I'm feeling the same thing now. I started my entrepreneurship journey very late in life. And now your stories are making me regret it. Both your stories are just so inspiring. And in a very short period of time, at a relatively young age, both of you have achieved what is amazing for a sector that didn't exist when you started, right? It is not like you're doing something that is a completely new idea. And that makes me really proud to see you guys doing something. It's not a copycat of what others are doing or what somebody did in another country. And for you, Rahat, to be thinking about building a global business is so exciting. And for you, Jairaj, to be talking about making a huge dent into the bottom of the pyramid for young people. I mean, you are absolutely right. I mean, this is going to completely change the face of that generation of Indians who are going to who are today being cheated out of education. So it's just very inspiring to see what you guys are doing. And that's all I want to say. Congratulations and all the very best. And I hope I can interview again in 10 years when you are all going to be much bigger, much more successful, and having much bigger impact. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm sorry we couldn't cover all your questions, but it's great to have you on a long weekend and for you to make the time. I look forward to seeing everyone next Saturday. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Pramath. Have a good evening.